Yes, welcome in. It's a special episode of the camp. Jesse's on vacation, but I have a very competent replacement here for a special, I guess, announcement. Mason Posa, the linebacker from New Mexico, has committed to Wisconsin. I've got Evan Flood from 24/7 Sports here. I know he did it on your channel, and now he's a Badger. How big a commitment is this for Wisconsin?
Yeah, I think this is one of the bigger ones in recent memory, certainly towards the top, if not the top, during the Fickle era. I mean, how many times have we seen Wisconsin get in early on a prospect like this? The feeding frenzy kind of takes place, and then the Badgers kind of fade a little bit at the end, or maybe they get them in for an official visit, and you're kind of just holding your breath the last couple of weeks. I mean, they really flex their recruiting muscles here on this one with a real top of the board target in Posa, who also had offers from Alabama, Oregon, USC, Washington, to name a few, and they went outside their typical recruiting area to go get them. I can't overstate how well of a job defensive coordinator Mike Tressel did on this one, not only getting the commitment, but getting it to the first weekend of June official visits, and Posa didn't even go to his other two scheduled officials to Oregon and Texas A&M. They locked them down right then and there. So I think he's the best player Wisconsin has in their 2025 class right now. And he kind of fits the mold of, guys who have been really successful in this program, wrestling background, super productive linebacker that's kind of off the beaten path, there in New Mexico. So don't get a lot of foot traffic in those schools, but, huge junior season, 133 tackles, 21 for loss, 9 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries. The guy kind of does a little bit of everything out there. I describe him as maybe not elite in any one particular area, but everything he does is pretty darn good. And, he's just got that type of tape where, you just kind of know it when you see it. He's going to be a good one.
We're watching some of his film right here. What stands out about him is it's just every time he finds the ball, he's coming with just anger. It's like whoever is getting hit. We saw there's another clip of him like working as like a deep safety on 3rd and long, and him just coming up and jacking the kid. Like it feels like every single time he gets an opportunity to take a shot, he takes it, and the other kid feels it.
Yeah, and I think, if he is elite in any one particular area, I think it's the 2 or 3 seconds before you see one of those big plays happen. Whether it's just manipulating an offensive player to kind of create a blitz rush lane, or disguising his plan pre-snap, or even sometimes, you look at his drops and pass coverage, you can get 10, 12 yards quickly, no problem. I mean, all the stuff he does before the play is made is probably my biggest takeaway on what he's able to do and why you saw him have an ultra productive season. But I know Tressel, when recruiting Posa, kind of compared him to Jaheim Thomas, and you see some of that stuff on film like we saw in spring, where Thomas is an inside linebacker, but they use him on every down in every situation, and they'll move him all over the field. And I think Posa does have some of that type of ability.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what that looks like this fall. It's has to assume that Wisconsin stops the run on first and second down, which was not always something they did well last year. But the packages where they get all those different linebackers on the field, and Mike Tressel said the same thing too. He's like, yeah, you're not really going to see that unless we get the first down run stop, second down run stop. But then you get to 3rd and long, and they got some different bodies they can throw at you. And I think Mason Posa kind of fits this perfectly because he does have that position flexibility.
Right. I think you and I agree. We like Wisconsin's inside linebacker room, all the way down to the 3rd team. I'm going to guess that some guys are in trouble here when he gets to campus, which, obviously you'd love to see some of these third team guys, who are young, or even 2nd team that, get their shot eventually. But, it's a good problem to have, especially Wisconsin hasn't always had that problem at key positions where, really talented players are getting lost in the fold. But he's going to be a really, really good fit. And, prior staffs always kind of talked about, finding Wisconsin guys outside of Wisconsin, getting to know him a little bit. I think he really does fit the culture, and a guy that'll come into this locker room easily. and be able to mesh with the other guys around him too, which is always key and kind of an underrated part of recruiting and putting a team together.
Yeah, I think this is interesting because they've gotten highly ranked outside linebackers, right? And they've gotten some highly ranked guys in different positions. Inside linebacker hasn't been the spot where they've continually added like high ranked guys. And obviously Tacker Curtis is a little bit different because he's coming from USC, but I'm talking about straight out of high school. You think about, and me and Jesse were talking about this, you think about it, a TJ Edwards, a Chris Orr, a Ryan Connolly, a Jack Sitchie. I mean, Jack Sanborn was pretty highly recruited, but Leo Chanel, like they haven't necessarily recruited the stars to that position very well. This guy is different.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something I wrote about today. The tradition Wisconsin has at this position and kind of the history that Mike Tressel has of pumping these guys out. You wonder if it's going to be a really successful marriage on the recruiting trail. And I always talk about momentum. And, when we talk about top 247 prospects who are kind of national recruits like Posa, I don't know how active he is on the 7-on-7 circuit or, what camps he always did. But, these guys talk to each other a lot. They form relationships at this stuff outside of high school. And they definitely take notice of, where you're going if you're a, bigger time recruit. And we saw the kind of what I think might be a similar effect, 2019 and beyond, when Wisconsin went on that big run with offensive linemen where it was, Tippmann, bang, Rucci, bang, Malman, bang, Jack Nelson, bang. And I'm missing a couple of names here. Logan Brown. Wisconsin had a built advantage with, some of those guys, but outside of Jack Nelson, I don't think anyone was a real layup. But you saw that momentum just continue over 3 recruiting classes. With what Tressel's done at inside linebacker, Michigan State, Cincinnati, wherever, and like you said, the tradition Wisconsin has at that position with not necessarily getting the most, the sexiest recruits, so to speak. You wonder if this could kind of catapult that into future recruiting classes where the Badgers, really go on a run. Obviously, this second season with the program and what they do with that defense under Tressel might, play a big part in that with Jaheim Thomas and Jake Chaney. From what we saw, it looks like it's going to be a pretty successful year for those guys, and they got 3 or 4 guys that can, really start for them. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in the future. What does this commitment do, in terms of kind of shaking things up nationally for what Wisconsin has historically been able to get at this position.
Well, look at the guys they beat for him, right? I mean, you said it yourself. He never went to Oregon for his visit, right?
Not that I know of, no, but he's been laying low for the last week. So
yeah, so like he was supposed to go to Oregon, he was supposed to go to Texas A&M. Those are obviously Oregon coming to the Big Ten. You're going to be competing with those guys even more now. You would think they're probably going to come into Wisconsin. We've seen USC come into Wisconsin and try and take some guys. I think this is big to stake, your recruiting spot, or you put your stake down saying, okay, yeah, you guys are coming here, but we're still going to fight and we're still going to win these battles, even if you're in this conference and you are Oregon, who is a top 10 recruiting power almost every single year, it feels like at this point.
Right. And it may not be as big of a deal to a school like Oregon, who can go get Mason Posa and any given recruiting class, but Wisconsin can't, right? At least they haven't historically. And that's why this is such a big deal for the Badgers too, because you've got a player who's kind of on that level of, maybe not blue blood, but, the next tier down and somebody that really elevates your room. Whereas maybe he walks into a place like Oregon, USC, and, he needs 2, 3, 4 years before he gets on the field. And I'm speaking transfer portal era, like that doesn't I don't know why I talk like that anymore, but just to give you a frame of reference. So that's why it's a big deal to Wisconsin. And like I said, going back to, they've historically lost these battles. They offered this kid in September of 2023, which is a very early offer. He was top of the board the entire way. And you never know. I mean, I don't cover other schools, so I don't know where he stood on the board, but the way he was pursued by Oregon for the longest time, and even some of the schools that didn't make the cut, like USC, Washington, Oklahoma State, Baylor, they've obviously got some really talented recruiting classes annually. And they went at him hard for the longest time, but for Tressel to kind of hang on there and, really ride that relationship to the finish line, I think says a lot, and he could be a game changer for this program.
So he visited the first weekend of those official visits where they had like 15 plus guys in. How big of an impact do you think those weekends have on a guy like him coming from where he does?
I think they're huge for Wisconsin for a lot of reasons. Now, he had been there twice previously, and including he was there earlier that month. So I don't know that the Badgers were really able to show him anything that he hadn't seen before. And he laid low after his visit because he gave a silent commitment. So I wasn't able to talk to him, maybe about what swayed him over the top just yet. But I've been surprised with how well this new staff has closed that first weekend, because what they've really done is get now it's not an exact science, but for the most part, they've wanted their top of the board plan A targets left to be in that first weekend, which is, from the outset seems a little dangerous, especially when these kids are taking 3, 4, 5 visits. You never want that luster to wear off, and then they kind of forget about all the stuff they were seeing by the end of June, or if they go into July or even August and hold things out. But they've done incredibly well at being able to close that first weekend. I mean, they're already up to I think 5 or 6 commits from that first weekend, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it was even more in the last cycle too, their first year on staff together. So it's been huge, and I thought it was a risky maneuver when I heard about it last year, to kind of not put all your eggs in the basket. But obviously the old adage was you wanted to go last and kind of leave that last impression. They're going the other way with it and having a lot of success.
So they now have 18 kids in this class as we talk. I know Fickle has said it's usually like 18 to 22 is kind of what he would like. They have a number of other names still out there on their board that they're hoping to get. And I know this class, it depends kind of on the service, but you guys, at least the composite, had them at, I believe, 15th today or 14th today. Either 14. Way. Yeah. Where do you envision it actually ending up? And I know that they're 14th right now in large part because of the numbers that they have. But you could also see bumps with some of these guys who are, pretty high 3 stars that maybe get a bump, and it helps your rating out a little bit. And again, the rating at the end of the day doesn't necessarily matter, but where do you think they might end up?
I would guess, and again, this is, me speaking without really knowing the other schools around them and their board and what it looks like. But I would have to imagine they're going to be close to peaking right here. With this commitment, and unless there's some, I think I'm looking at the 247 sports rankings, so I'm trying to find, guys that really, once you start getting into the top 10 range, what they're on the cusp of right now. I mean, you need some big recruits to really start jumping spots there. So I don't know if a low 4-star like Hardy Watts, or even a low 4-star, high 3-star like Byron Louis, the running back out of Florida, really moves the class up. Eugene Hilton, who's going to announce later this week, same thing. You're kind of about as high as you're going to get. Maybe a couple more spots left in there, and like you said, the sheer numbers over time, Wisconsin's more than likely going to drop. But I'd have to imagine, with assuming there's 4 or 5 more guys still left to join, I think it's possible they get into the low 20s and high teens, and maybe flirt with the best recruiting class in school history again. I think that's going to take some bumps. I'm using the 247 sports rankings right now, and I know there's a couple guys in there that haven't caught up to the composite yet. And so that was something I looked at a couple times, and it typically does. So, 14 right now. I don't know what other services have Wisconsin's class at. Maybe it's higher. You'd know more than I would on that. But yeah, I would say it's possible they could still hang around in the late teens, low 20s.
You mentioned a couple guys there that are going to be making decisions. Of those, me and Jesse kind of talked about it yesterday, but which ones do you feel good about at this point? And I know everything can change before they make their decisions.
I think Eugene Hilton, the wide receiver out of Indiana, is the one to watch right now. Son of former Indianapolis Colts star T.Y. Hilton. Like Posa.
I called him Ty Hilton yesterday like an idiot.
Like Posa, this is one Wisconsin just really went balls to the wall on, and Badgers may have lucked out here with some SEC programs filling up at wide receiver, but his only official visit was to Wisconsin, so the writing probably on the wall there. Hardy Watts still seems like it's up in the air. I know he got a crystal ball for Clemson the other day. I thought going into June was, everyone was kind of looking up at Michigan and kind of waiting to see that last official. So that's still there. That interesting one, Byron Louis. Wisconsin's kind of cleared out their running back board. They didn't host anybody else. So you're trying to get a South Florida kid out of away from Florida and Miami. Now the Badgers took 3 backs in the last cycle, so they might just say, let's put all our eggs in one basket, no harm, no foul. If we're not going to get anything better than what we took, why load up on this position in a room that's already full? But I thought that, maybe spoke to a level of confidence. I think Zay Gentry, the SMU commit, cornerback commit who visited that first weekend, is still in play. Still hearing him and Wisconsin are going back and forth. SMU suffered some pretty big decommits, and that's kind of taken momentum away from them. Just took a visit to Alabama, but I don't think the Crimson Tide are really that serious about him. Went to UCF as well. So I wouldn't be shocked if Wisconsin was able to flip him too. I'm sure there's some other names I'm missing. Or Cade Peterzak out of North Dakota. Another kid like Posa and Louis. Wisconsin's just gone extremely hard after. I think he's going to go Wisconsin or Oklahoma in the end.
And Willerson, how do you say his last name?
Oh, yeah, Ernest Willerson. Badgers, I think, gained a lot of momentum after that, official visit last weekend. Wouldn't be surprised if they upended West Virginia and kind of moved to the forefront. They're a little bit of a late offer there, so they had some work to do. He's going to Georgia Tech this weekend, and I think it's going to announce June 18th, if I'm not mistaken. Florida's another finalist, but I don't think the Gators are really in play there.
So obviously a lot going on recruiting-wise, but the big story of the day, Mason Posa becomes Wisconsin's top recruit, correct? In this class? I think at least composite-wise, I believe so.
Composite-wise, either him or Logan Powell. 247 Sports, he definitely is. I know we've got him higher than the composite.
Yeah, so either way, big day for Luke Fickell and the Badgers, and Evan, certainly appreciate your time and breaking it all down for me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, we'll be back next week, a little bit more recruiting, I'm sure, news to come.